Hello beautiful people, welcome to Remi's Fashion. My name is Remi. On this channel, we upload pattern drafting and sewing tutorials every week. Thank you all for joining me. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and put on your notification bell so that anytime I upload new tutorials, you'll be the first to be notified. This is the conclusion of our previous tutorial on how to sew a corset top using our drafted corset pattern. If you have not seen that video, I'll put the link in the description box below and on the cards above. If you want to see the conclusion of sewing our corset top, then keep watching. The first thing we're going to be doing is to sew in the boning channels for both the front and the back. For the boning channel, you can either make your own or use already made bias tape. I'll be making my own strips that I'm going to be using for the boning channels from scratch. So I have a fabric here which I have interfaced. I interfaced it with air stay. Okay, so choose your preferred fabric. So I'm going to be using this for my boning channels. Just like I said earlier, I'm going to be making my own boning channels from scratch. I'm going to be cutting 1.4 inches wide of this fabric for my casing. I'm going to be cutting my strips on straight grain. I'm going to be cutting straight like this. Make sure when you want to cut yours is parallel to your selvage. This is my fabric selvage and this is where I'm going to be cutting my strips parallel to the selvage. Okay, I'm not going to be cutting it on the bias because I do not want it to stretch. So cut the strips parallel to the selvage so that they will not stretch. Do not cut them on bias grain. If you do that, they will stretch and we do not want that. And then once you've cut your strips, you put it through a bias maker. I'm going to be using this bias maker and this is 18mm. All you need to do is to measure 1.4 inches. So I'm going to measure 1.4 inches. I will mark. I'm going to do the same thing all the way down, 1.4 inches. And then I'll use my ruler to connect the points. And then I'll use my rotary cutter to cut out the strip. So after cutting out, this is what I have, you see. So count the number of channels you're going to have on your top, both the front and the back. And then that's how many strips you're going to cut. And once you've done that, you have the number you want. Then you just cut like this. And then you put this through your bias maker. This is the bias maker I'm going to be using. You put it in through like this. Use a sharp object, pull it out, and then you iron it down. You see, pulling, once you're ironing, you're pulling till you exhaust your strip. I already have a video tutorial on this channel on how to make your own bias tape from scratch. I'll put a link in the description box below and on the cards above. So do check that out. So I've already made mine. See, this is the strips we're going to be using to create our channels. So I've made mine from scratch. So you can do yours as well, or if you prefer, you can use already made bias tape and use, or you create yours. I always prefer to make mine because you can decide whatever fabric you want to use. That's what you're going to be using to create your own channels. So this is our front top. And then I have reduced the bulk. So this is where I'm going to be sewing in my channel. I'm going to sew one in here. And then I will sew one in the middle, running all the way down. I will sew another one in here. Okay? And then at the back as well. So before you start sewing, just leave a bit of space. So like this. So you can pin it down. Make sure it's covering where you join together. And then we're going to sew very close to the edge. And we're going to be sewing on both sides. On this side and on this side. Very close to the edge. Okay, so this is where we're going to be sewing in this casing. Straight all the way down on this side and on this side. That way we have a channel for our boning. So I'm going to sew this one now all the way down. I'm going to sew one in here all the way down. And then I'll sew another one here all the way down. And then for the back as well. For the back, to sew in our zipper. So this is the zipper I'm going to be sewing in. And then this is our zipper allowance. Remember I notched and I ironed it down. See? So I'm just going to open it up now. You see? I have my lines there. here, so I know where my zipper is going to be. Then I will take my zipper. I'm going to be using this zip, okay? I'm going to be leaving a bit of space at the bottom, which I'm going to sew in permanently. So like 4 inches, I'm just going to mark. And then I will use a permanent stitch. I will lock it in. And then this is my zipper, right side facing right side. I'm going to start from here. And then very close to my line. You can use pins to hold. Very close to my line. I'll just pin it. You don't have to pin. You can just sew. But I just want to demonstrate what it's going to look like after you've sewn it. Take it to your machine and you sew it all the way down. Once you've sewn it, this is what it will look like this. And then you now sew the second one. You now attach the second one. It's going to be attached here. Make sure the line is very close to the feet, like this. I'll pin it and show you what it will look like after you've sewn. Once you've sewn it, this is what it's going to look like. You zip down and then we'll cut off a bit. Measure about 1 inch and then cut off the excess. And then that excess is going to be tucking on the zipper allowance. So that's how we're going to be sewing in the zip. And for the back channel, where we sew in our dart is where I'm going to be sewing in the channel. So I'm going to sew in like this. See? All the way down. And then for the second side as well, like this, all the way down. So now let's go to the sewing machine and then sew in this. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to sew. I'm going to sew in the channels one by one. See what I did? You see the tape I made? So I'm going to align this middle of the tape, the middle of my top, like this, to the middle like this. And I'm just going to hold it with a pin and then I'm going to stitch. So now I'm going to stitch on both sides. I'm going to start from here all the way down. Once I finish sewing this side, I'll sew the second side. I'm going to sew close to the edge as possible. So after doing this first side, you see how I sew very close to the edge? So that's what you're going to do. Sew very close to the edge, and on the second side as well, sew very close to the edge so that our boning can go in easily without any problems. So I'm going to sew on the second side as well. See, I've done the first boning channel all the way down. I'll do this second and the third side just exactly like I did this first one. I'll sew very close to the edge on both sides. See how I sew very close to the edge? I'm going to sew the second side now, just like I sewed this first one. See how I've done this too? So I'm going to repeat this same process for all my boning channels. I'm going to do it and then I will show you what they look like. So I'm going to sew the middle one now. I'm going to sew close to the edge as well on both sides. See what it looks like? I'm going to sew on the other side now. So this is the front done. So I'm going to do this same process for the back. This is the inner part. All done. The front is all done. So I'm going to do the same thing for the back. And then I will show you what it looks like. So I have sewn in our boning channels for the front and for the back. So this is the boning channels for the front. And then this is our regilim boning. So you measure the length and then you cut and insert it in. Okay? Let me just put it in to show you that this channel can contain the boning. See, before I put the boning in, I'm going to sew in our bra cups, okay? And then when I'm going to insert the boning, of course, it's not going to come all the way out. I just wanted you to see it, that it can go through the channel without any problem. Don't forget, we have half an inch allowance on the edge, so we're going to put the boning before the half an inch allowance, okay? I'll just insert it on here as well so that you can see. See, so it goes in, no problem. So this is the front and this is the wrong side. See how neat the wrong side is? And this is the back. See the channels all sewn in. So the next thing we're going to do now is to sew in the bra cups to the front of our corset top. So these are our bra cups. So what you're going to do now is I'm going to face wrong side to wrong side, and I'm going to sew. I'm going to face it like this, wrong side facing wrong side, and I'm going to sew all round. And then I'm going to make sure this middle matches the middle of our channel on here, and then the middle of this one matches the middle of our channel on here. Okay, so wrong side facing wrong side is what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to go and sew. So let's go to the sewing table, and then we'll sew in our bra cups. So I have pinned it all round. You can decide to pin it, or you can decide to just sew like that. So now I'm going to sew. Okay, I'm sewing on the right side because I'm going to be using my tape to cover this top. So this is the first one done. So I'm going to go ahead and do the second one. So I finish up the second side. So the two sides are done, and this is the inside and this is the outside. So the next thing we're going to do now is I'm going to cover these rough edges with my bias tape. So this is our breast cup taking shape. So the next thing we're going to do now is to use our bias tape to cover our rough edges. So this is my bias tape. So I'm just going to sew on the edges all the way round. I'm just covering the rough seams. See? I'm going around the curve. See, I've done this first side. I'm now going to sew it down on the second side so that it lays flat and cover the seams. See, all done. So I'm going to go ahead and do the second side. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to sew in my zipper. I will first of all close this space that I left. I'll close it up with a permanent stitch, and then I will now sew my zipper. I'll lock in my stitches. So this is it. This is what it looks like. I will now sew in my zipper. I'm going to be changing my machine foot to a zipper foot. This is what the zipper foot of this machine looks like. I can decide to change to the right or to the left depending on the side of the zipper that I'm sewing into my garment. So I'll change it now. So I'm going to be sewing this side first. That's the left hand side. So because I'm sewing the left hand side first, I'm going to put my zipper foot on the left hand side. So now I'm going to sew. But before I sew, I'm going to move my needle closer to the edge so that I sew very close to the edge of the zipper. So I'm going to move my needle to the left as close to the teeth as possible. So now I'm going to sew in the first side of my zipper. Okay, see how close I sew to the zipper teeth, and then when I zip down, see, it's very easy to open. You see? So this is the first side, this is the wrong side. I'm now going to sew in the other side. So I'm going to stitch it this to this. So I'm going to sew from the bottom right up. So I'm going to start from the side I just sewed, and then I'll sew across, and then I'm going to be stitching on this side alone now. I'm not holding it, see, just stitching the zip to the allowance on the left, starting from the bottom. I'm still going to be sewing close to the teeth. Back stitch at the beginning and at the end. This is our zipper done. So this is our zipper fixed to our corset top. This is the inner part and this is the outer part. All done. So I'm going to cut off this excess. The next thing I'm going to do now is to iron our corset top, both for the front and the back. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to serge the edges to stop the fabric from unraveling. I've serged one side. This is what it looks like. I'm now going to serge the other side. This is the other side serge. So this is it. So I'm going to go ahead and serge the edges for both the front and the back. This is this side. So I'll finish off the edges. So I have serged. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to shorten the zip. See, it's long. So I'm going to cut it. And before I cut it, I'm going to zip down. So I'm just going to cut it. So after cutting it, I'll tuck it in here like this and then turn it around like this. And then I'm just stitch it down just to hold it down. See what it looks like? See? This is the wrong side and this is the right side. See? I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So our zipper is all done. Cut it short, see? Now this is it. So the back is ready. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to bind the top of our corset, both for the back and the front. I'm going to be starting from the back. I'm going to bind it so that it can give me a beautiful finish. So I have a piece of fabric here. This is 1.5 inches and I interfaced it. So it's what I'm going to be using. Okay. So I'll face right side to right side. I'm going to tuck this underneath like this. And then I'm going to sew on top all the way to the end from one edge to the other edge. Once I get to the end, I'm going to tuck the edge in as well. So I'm just going to cut and then I'm going to tuck it in as well. And then I will sew. After sewing, this is what it looks like. This is the wrong side and this is the right side. So I'm just going to flip it over like this and then see, I'll fold it in like this. You can reduce the bulk on this edge. You can either use a sewing machine to sew it or you can actually hand stitch it. So I've sewn one side, see what it looks like, and this is the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the second side and then I'll show you what it looks like. So here is the back of our corset top. We have sewn in the channels, we've sewn in our zipper at the back, and then we finished the top nicely. So this is the right side. This is our zipper all done. This is the wrong side for our top. All that is left now is for us to give it a good press. And I've also serged the edges. So this is the back all done, ready to be joined to the front. And this is the front. I have sewn in our boning channels, all done. This is the inside and this is the right side. So the next thing we're going to do now is to insert in the boning to the channels and then finish up the top binding just like I did for the back, and then we join our top together. This is the boning I'm going to be using. This is Regi boning. So I left 2 inches allowance at the bottom, so I'm going to leave the 2 inches at the bottom like this, and then I'll measure my boning 2 inches here. So this is where I'm going to cut. I will cut. It's the same thing with this one as well. So I'll cut 2 for these 2 sides. This for here and for here. And then for here, I'm going to leave 1/2 inch at the top because I'm not going to put it all the way to the top. And then I'm going to measure 2 inches down. So it's going to be up to here. And then I'll cut. And then I'm going to insert my boning into the channel like this, see? And then you can use something to push it in. And then this one will go in here. And then this long one will go in here. So just look for something, be a wooden stick, you push it in like that. See, I've pushed mine in. Then I'm going to be using this for the breast cups. So I'm just going to put it in through the channel like this. And then I'll put the second one as well. So that's all done. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to bind the top just like I did for the back, and then I'm going to join them together. Right side facing right sides, both the front and the back. And then whatever allowance you left, you should use it now to sew. So that's all that is left for me to do now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bind the top, and then I will join the front and the back together, and then we'll be done. The next thing we're going to do now is to use a bias tape to bind the top, the front top of our corset. after sewing first one, this is what it looks like. I'll now turn in these corners. So this is it. The next thing I'm going to do now is to sew in the other side. So after sewing the top, the next thing is to now sew it down. So I'm not going to sew that now. So these are front corset top and this is the back. So I'm just going to now sew the sides. So whatever allowance you left, use that to sew the front and the back together. So that's what I'm going to do now. Join the front and the back together using the allowance that I left. I will now join the front and the back together. I'm going to sew the other side now. So I've joined the front and the back. So this is our top. All that is left for us to do now is to serge the bottom and hem. This is our corset top, all done. Okay, this is the right side, this is the front, this is the back, this is the inside, and I have also hemmed. I'm going to be using these lace trimmings just to decorate the top. You don't have to do it. I'm going to be fixing it to the top to beautify my corset even further. I hope you enjoy making your corset top as much as I did. Make yours and tag me on Instagram at Remi's Fashion. I would love to see your finished work. If you have any comments or suggestions, I'll be in the comment section below. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching. See you in my next tutorial. Take care and God bless.